when you arrive in a disaster to help yourself to manage them. One of them is a point of command. We knew upon arriving to Port-au-Prince, we knew that we had to find a location that was going to become the central point for our communication and information flow, and where that incident command was going to be set up. Wasn't something that we came in to take over, wasn't something that we had the opportunity to say, here we are, we're the saviors of your world, and we're going to take over and show you where command was. What we had to do was communicate with those that were already on the ground serving the people and find out strategically with them what's the best place to set up your command. In doing that, we found that some of the thoughts that we had about where that should be were not well established. And we were hoping to be closer to the airport, where we thought that command could be established with the joint forces that were coming in from all over the world. The better decision ended up to be actually at the Salvation Army compound, where not only was the need the greatest in the community, but it was also where the Salvation Army already had a founded presence where people knew to turn to the Salvation Army. So our job was to establish that command first, and then secondary to that is my job as liaison was to communicate with the United Nations World Food Program and all the other agencies that were coming from around the world to find out how those resources coming in collaboratively could help to meet the need of the communities we were serving, not only in Port-au-Prince, but all the communities that Salvation Army serves every day in Haiti.
How did that go? What was that like, being the liaison and learning what I assume would be a whole different cast of players on the international side from the domestic side?
Well, you know, sometimes we have a little bit of an opinion, the world has a little bit of an opinion of the arrogant American who thinks they know everything. I think in this disaster I tend to have arrived with a little bit of that arrogance, maybe more than I'm even stating now. But the reality is we know how disasters run domestically. When we arrived, we tried to apply that concept immediately upon that arrival, and what we found was there is structure in the world international relief efforts that go on. It's not the structure not only that we are accustomed to, but it moves at a different pace than we are accustomed to. We had to learn a lot of that on the fly, which we need to be more prepared for those that are traveling internationally to know those processes so that we can step in a little bit quicker and help to contribute to that collaborative effort without having to learn everything as we go.
And David, what did a typical day look like for you? What were your responsibilities, and what did you have to do every day?
Well, my role really involved logistics. And again, in those early days, what we were attempting to do, as Kevin has already outlined, is just set up the beginning infrastructure of an incident command team. I was fortunate enough to be teamed with Craig Arnold, who is a Salvationist and an executive from UPS. Matter of fact, there's a wonderful article in USA Today about the great work that he's doing in Haiti. And our initial role was I was going to set up the leading logistics at the command center, at divisional headquarters, as Kevin has already outlined, and Craig was going to do the on-the-ground stuff. We were attempting to work on all the items that would fall into the logistical category: vehicles, supplies, ensuring that the logistics of command and control would be in place and would be managed so that when we began to distribute and when we began to actually meet direct service needs, that those things would be in place.
We keep hearing about this Salvation Army compound. Paint a picture for us who haven't been there. What does that compound look like? Is it a group of buildings and they're all still standing, or what does that look like?
It is indeed a fortified compound. It's a fenced-in area. It's actually two separate compounds with a canal running down the middle. They are separated in that regard, but they are right next door to one another. You've got divisional headquarters and the school and some offices on one side, and you have the core building, the church, the clinic, daycare center, and some other buildings on the other side. And that makes up the larger compound that exists there. I think every building was impacted in some form or fashion. However, a good portion of the facility was able to be utilized after the event. And in fact, while we were there, some structural engineers came by and looked at one of the significant buildings that we were utilizing, and where we eventually set up the Emergency Operations Center for the Army to ensure that there was some stability as far as the structure of the building was concerned, so there would be no danger to those that would be working in it. But it is, as Kevin has already outlined, it really was ideally suited for the response. The Army was well represented, and the community knows where the Army is. And although it's not a large facility, it suited our needs while we were there.
So, David, is that where you were staying?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because God's grace was certainly abundant during this event. It just so happens that the command staff were able to secure a hotel. And not only were they able to secure a hotel, but it was a hotel that had generator power and had running water, which is unbelievable to think that in an event that basically wiped out a city and impacted a country significantly, that you'd be able to find a hotel that had electricity by generation and running water. And so we were fortunate to actually secure a number of hotel rooms at this hotel, and that's where a number of the volunteers and the command staff that arrived stayed in those early days. Now, that is not typical. We also had a large contingent of our folks that resided at the divisional headquarters compound in sleeping bags and in tents and on floors, and a large number of people that had set up tents in the grassy and dirt areas of divisional headquarters. None of us went down expecting to have electricity, and none of us expected to sleep in the traditional bed. And indeed, even to this day, you have folks that go down that are spending time working on this disaster for the Army who are in tents and are in sleeping bags and are sleeping up under the stars. And so I think, what the average individual can expect is expect the very worst, expect the bare minimum. And if other accommodations can be made, then praise the Lord for that.
Kevin, you've been very eloquent in some of the conversations that we've had describing that this is a complicated disaster, and that even things that we take for granted, even on a domestic event, really has some unintended consequences in a place like Haiti. Describe for us some of those complexities of this type of event.
Yeah, again, every disaster is different. This one is far